My name is Sara Lomax Reese. I'm the president and CEO of WURD. And we are so excited to be partnering with the Bartram's Garden family because they are just an amazing organization that are stewarding this amazing space, this farm, this, the whole historic landscape here. And it's right in the heart of Southwest Philly. And a lot of people don't know that this jewel is here. And so we're always excited to host events here. And so I really just want to thank the folks, the staff, and the team at Bartram's Garden. So let's give them a nice hand. The leader of the organization is Maitre Roy, and she's right here in the beautiful orange right there. Great wave. Yes. So we really appreciate her. And so this event is a part of our ecoWURD effort. Last September, we launched this project called ecoWURD, which is a content and journalism around the intersection of race, income, and the environment. And I know Charles Ellison, who's right here, had a very spirited conversation yesterday about the refineries in Southwest. And we know that there are lots of issues in Philadelphia that disproportionately impact the Black community around environmental justice. And so our ecoWURD initiative is really very much trying to shed a spotlight on those kinds of issues. And so urban farming is very much in that same vein. And the Sankofa Community Farm, which is right over there, is just this amazing space that's really looking at kind of African ancestral crops and the roots of African agriculture and things like that. And so that is kind of the basis, some of the foundational elements of what tonight's conversation is going to center around. And so I want to just introduce our panel and just lay out what's happening. So we're going to have this conversation. Chef Laquanda Dobson, who's here to our left, who is with Bartram's Garden. She is one of the farmers at the Sankofa Community Farm. She's a chef. She has prepared a wonderful array of food that we're all going to sample after the conversation. And she's going to do a cooking demonstration talking about, the crops and the seasonal food and things like that. So we're really excited to be able to partner with Laquanda and sample her foods, etc. Charles Ellison will be our moderator, and he's the host of Reality Check on Monday through Thursday, 4 to 7 p.m. Tonya Hopkins is right here to my right. And so Tonya is a food and wine and food and drink historian and wine specialist, as you might have sampled, and wine educator. She was also my roommate in college, and that's why she's like busting my chops. But she is an amazing kind of historian, food historian, and she's also going to be doing a regular segment on Charles's show on a weekly basis. It actually already started, and she's doing a column with the Philadelphia Citizen and a podcast. So you're going to be hearing more from Tonya after tonight. And then on my right, your left, all the way on the end, is Chris Bolden Newsome, who is the co-founder of the Sankofa Community Farm and one of the farmer-in-chief, I call him, at Bartram's Garden. And this is an amazing array of brains and experiences and perspectives that I think we're going to really enjoy hearing. It's a different kind of WURD event, and I hope you enjoy it. And we've got a lot of events coming up, but I'll talk about that later when we wrap this portion up. But I'm going to hand it over to Charles Ellison, and we're going to go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sara. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for coming out here today for the Philly Farm Social. This is an ideal Friday evening. This is an ideal way to spend your Friday evening, your Friday night with your special significant other, with your family. We really appreciate everyone coming out here today for our ecoWURD event. This is one of our keynote events of this year and for this initiative. So we really appreciate everyone. Just the turnout is really immense, and I'm really feeling that. And thanks so much. And this is really beautiful out here too. So I've never been on this side of, I'm admitting this, I've never been on this side of Bartram's Garden. I've never seen Sankofa Community Farm. So this is just as much of an experience, a first-time experience for me, as it is many others that are out here today as well. I'm Charles Ellison. As Sara was saying, I'm host, executive producer, also creator of Reality Check. It's a daily public affairs program on WURD, and it's every Monday through Thursday, 4 to 7 p.m. Many of you listen in, so I do appreciate that. And you can also catch me on Twitter at Ellison Report, #Reality Check. Definitely appreciate that as well. I'm always looking forward to hearing from folks. I'm at cellison@wordradio.com as well, so feel free to reach out to me by email, maybe give me some feedback or questions or new insights about today's conversation. So let's start this is our keynote expert Philly Farm Social, #Philly Farm Social panel of experts on everything ranging from the culinary arts to food creation and food sampling, wine tasting, to urban farming and urban gardening. And Sara did a wonderful job introducing everyone. Laquanda Dobson, also Tonya Hopkins, and Christopher Bolden Newsome. So I'm not going to have them give any more introductions anymore after that, so we'll just go ahead and get right into it. I'll start with you, Chris, as well, as far as Sankofa Community Farm. The vision for it, what inspired, what triggered Sankofa Community Farm? Real curious about that.
Well, first giving honor to our creator, without whom we would not have made it to where we are, and who holds our destiny in their hands, and into our ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity and to talk a little bit about Sankofa Community Farm. Can everybody hear me? This microphone is shocking me for some reason, so I might put it down and project at some point. It seems to be all right now. Let me stop for a second, so we'll see. All right. So Sankofa Farm, what went into the creation of it? I think that what feels maybe more powerful, I can talk briefly about that, but what feels more powerful is what has gone into what it is becoming, I think. And then I'll explain what I mean by that. Sometimes the way we get started is not the way we end up holding out. This farm initially, and we believe everything, we're a spiritually rooted farm. We believe everything that has happened here has happened, as a part of the unwritten plan, and that it's going to keep on going the way it's supposed to be going. Now, that said, about a decade ago, Ty and I, our co-director, who we have not mentioned, can we get an applaud for Tyler Holmberg? Can everybody see him? All right, okay. So we started this farm about 10 years ago, and I'll be very clear that the initiative began before I got here. Ty had actually scoped out this land and was part of deliberations and sort of people's dreamings and all. And this was a long time ago when we were at one time associated with the University of Pennsylvania. So move light years forward. Our community, we found that the original plans and the ideas that went into what a farm like this would be right here in the heart of Southwest Philadelphia. And I repeat, you are in Southwest Philadelphia. The plans that originally, in which this farm were originally conceived, were very much focused on access. They were coming very much from the world of urban farming, right? Urban agriculture. These are hip words. These are hot and exciting words right now, right? And so we followed that model and that mold because that's what we thought was going on. That's what we thought was needed. And we listened to almost everybody except our community. Except our community at first, right? To know what the needs were. Again, I believe that's part of the plan too. That had to happen the way it happened, right? For our learning and for the learning and the growth of our community. So you fast forward here 10 years, the program has continued to grow. We are a farm that is located in an urban space. We very rarely refer to ourselves as urban agriculture or urban farm, right? Because for us, it's agriculture, right? It's just loving the earth. And because as African people, particularly as African people of the diaspora, who were brought here to do agricultural work. That's why you're here, by the way, y'all. Brought here to do agricultural work, right? That we have this unique tie and this unique and sort of conflicted relationship as well with the land that we have to work out. And so we recognize that what Spirit was doing was allowing this space to come into being. And maybe we had some plans and somebody else had plans about what it would be, and it would be about providing access to fresh food. Well, guess what? It's a whole lot of food in the hood, y'all. People don't like to hear this. It contradicts what the going story in urban ag. It ain't all good for you, right? A lot of it ain't, but there's a lot of food. This is why we also moved away from these hip terms like food desert, right? You know? Because the idea of the people, when they say food deserts, they conceive that, oh, it's a place where there's a drought, there's no food. Well, there's plenty of food if you know where to find it in the hood. Always has been, right? And so that wasn't the problem. Access to the food wasn't the problem, right? There was a whole layer of understanding and of disconnection from the sources that our food came from. Right?
And Chris, let me bring Laquanda into this part of the conversation as well, while we're talking about, what you were describing is now new, hip, very special terms. They're in the mainstream discourse: urban farming, urban agriculture, and food deserts. Which, that's kind of that's a misnomer on a lot of levels, right? But Laquanda, with you being assistant farmer here at Sankofa Community Farm, what was your personal? I'd like to learn more about that as you learn more about farming and going from or transitioning or that personal journey from urban farming to now culinary prep and presentation and creation. What was that like?
Let's see. First of all, I would like to give thanks to the Creator, and thank you, WURD, for having me here. And I just want to give some claps for all the elders that are here today. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
And also, I just want to give thanks to my lovely family that is here. I love y'all so much. And I just want to give thanks to all of my ancestors who are not here today, but are with me in my body. With your question, I became an assistant farmer because I wanted my mental health to be better. I started off working in the culinary industry, and it was very toxic, a very not good environment to cook in. And coming out here, being on this farm, just being on this land with Chris and Ty and our youth who are back there, I love y'all.
Shout out for our young cook.
I came here because of my mental health. I knew that it was a thing that I needed to do, and I also knew that I needed to teach my family also about how to heal in different ways that we didn't know. And I felt like that was really important to me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to get first, before we got a little bit deeper into this discussion, I wanted to get some insights from the panelists about why they entered this space, why they're in their respective professions, and why they're in the universe of food. And, particularly Tonya, you historicize food, right? And why is that even necessary? I mean, we're having this big community and now national conversation about food and food culture, but why is it even necessary, you as a food and wine historian, why is it necessary to historicize it, to learn about the chronology of events that led us to this point where we are now having this conversation about food and about Black culture and food?
The simplest answer is part of the name of the place that we are at, the Sankofa Community Farm, in terms of remembering, reaching back, and reclaiming.
Go back and fetch it.
Go back
Right.
and fetch it. And
That's
what?
right.
And in this context, because African Americans, pick one of the 7 names we have been called within the century: Negro, Black, colored with the U if you are coming from the Caribbean, Afro-American, African-American, whatever name you want to give us, we are the foundation of American foodways, of the Americas. We were brought here for that work, per what Chris was saying. It's no other ethnic group has such a unique, multifaceted link to the foodways, starting with the land and with the agriculture. I don't want to be disrespectful. I need to give thanks to my ancestors, our shared ancestors, the DNA we share throughout the Americas. Same people dropped off in different ports. And also, it's important to contextualize, because the main crop, the engine of the transatlantic slave trade, was sugar cane. Okay, and so the Sugar Islands, also known as the Caribbean, the Greater Antilles, Lesser Antilles, Central America, the top part of North America, the entirety of Brazil, that was the primary crop, and the majority of transplanted peoples and crops were in that area. Those of us in North America are intrinsically linked to that trade as well. And the other thing is that along with the displaced people came the crops and real key foundational crops of American agriculture that not only needed the labor and the toil, but the brilliance and the ingenuity and the technology of the people to work these crops. One great example, and pre-Google Maps, they knew that the Angolan rice would grow well in the Carolinas. And not only, and that the people who had been doing this rice for thousands and thousands of years were the people that had to come with that crop to work that difficult, the intricacies of it. So the rice is a good example. I talked about sugar. But to answer your question, Charles, you know, similar to what Chef was saying, you know, the whole thing about well-being and balance and mental health, it's this, for me, was not to get spooky, it was like a calling of sorts. You know, I came from a family, I don't want to say obsessed with food, but, you know, we grew stuff right in the greater metropolitan area of Philadelphia, grew food in the backyard, tomatoes, watermelons. I later found out that the strongest branch of my family tree came up early in the Great Migration out of the Chesapeake Bay, which is the Virginia, Maryland tobacco plantations, arguably the birthplace of American cuisine. Those cooks who were throwing down in those plantation kitchens, building off of the agricultural legacy of Native Americans and the Africans who were brought to grow the crops and to fish and hunt and forage and all these things, works its way and informs fine dining. So it's so huge and so massive. Right. And as a young person, I had a sense of it, but didn't know and had to study it and research, and had to leave corporate America and had to be poor and had to figure out how to make this work. And
You know, Chris, one thing that I've seen, particularly when I'm looking at African Americans here, Caribbean people in the islands, also, you know, we look at also our West African, East African brothers and sisters on the continent. You see some of this too in Europe. Black people probably, arguably, have the most complicated relationship with food and also with agriculture and with farming. And so I find it both fascinating but tragic that we're having these conversations about food insecurity, right? It's ironic on a lot of levels, right? So how do we grapple with that? Also, what do we do about that? Because we're having this big food insecurity conversation, particularly in a city like Philadelphia. This is one of the reasons why you built this place, right, was to tackle that food insecurity. So on a larger scale, I mean, this is kind of like this is on a macro scale, you're trying to do something here in this corner of Southwest Philly, but on a macro scale, how do we combat that larger issue of food insecurity?
Well, the way we approach it is we push and we emphasize food sovereignty. Food security is a term that was created by the United States government to refer to hunger, right? So it's language that and it's language also that we use for a long time to refer to just the basic situation that we have in which people don't have enough food to eat or don't have enough good
and food sovereignty, you mean what, food ownership, having ownership?
Well, so in how we would, thanks for pushing me because we use it so much, I forget to define it. Yeah, when we talk about sovereignty, we talk about sort of self-rule or self-governance, right? But, you know, we didn't say, in our sense, it's not independence as much as it is interdependence, conscious interdependence, right? That we recognize that we are free people. That's always been true. Even when we were brought here in chains and worked for so many centuries, we are always and always have been free people, right? Mm-hmm. And so acknowledging sovereignty is acknowledging, first off, that that we are a people who take care of ourselves. That's what it is to be a sovereign man or a sovereign woman, right? Is that I'm taking care of myself. And so for us, food sovereignty refers to people having the right to make decisions about their food, to make decisions about their life chances ultimately. So again, I come from, I'm I'm born and raised in the Deep South, and I came from Mississippi, the Mississippi Delta. And what I recognized when I came to Philadelphia, things that I had taken for granted, how many other Southerners, I mean, well, most of you are, but how many direct Southerners in the room? Okay, all right. So, right. So, I said everybody, just about almost, particularly of African descent in this country, because I want to remind everybody that's still where most black people in the country live, is the South. And so that's very important. So I recognized that when I came up here that there was a lot that I took for granted in terms of the foodways, in terms of access to food. So what we recognized, I think, and maybe not as early on as we should have, was that that one of the biggest ways to combat food insecurity, the sense of not having enough to eat, is to teach folks how to take care of themselves as much as possible, right? We came here, we emphasize that we were brought here for agricultural purposes. And of course it was for the raising of commodity crops, tobacco and cotton, but there was a lot of food to it, and as well as the food knowledge, right, of all Americans. I'm so glad, sister, that you brought that up. It's not just Southern food or soul food or any of that that's considered, that has an African influence. We use European materials and Native American materials, maybe even to a lesser extent or greater extent, depending on where you are, but the mind that was creating it was African, right?
That raises a real interesting question, and I could throw this out here to all three of you. Should we be calling it black food? Or does that somehow simplify it? Does that somehow trivialize it? Because, particularly with our very unique history and the kind of path, the kind of trajectory we've been on, especially over the past several hundred years, is it a lot more complex than just simply calling it black food? Laquanda, Tonya? Just feel free to jump in on that.
It's American food, which is, let me just say this, that, again, I was talking about the multiple names and labels. We're the only ethnic group that doesn't have a place of origin attached to our ethnicity. So, you think about Chinese American and Italian American and the foods that go with that, and even the names of foods, right? Tacos, Mexican American, gyro, Greek American, sushi. There's a Velcro between the language of the food and the words and the national origin or the geography. And with African Americans, Africa is a continent. It's the largest continent on the planet. And, we come from primarily, most people share DNA from West Africa. But we are uniquely American, right? Because yes, a lot of cultural retention, a lot of stuff, on a cellular level is still with us that makes us who we are. However, we a lot of our identity and consciousness, we have no choice but to reinvent and recreate ourselves here constantly. So it's a really great question. We're not going to answer it or solve the problem now, but it's a challenge. It's like an identity crisis cuisine because it's American, but it's also, linked to the English and the Dutch and the Spaniards and the every group that comes here. And because black people were the cooks of the nation, literally, quote unquote, for the entire beginning of this country up until maybe, 50 years ago, professional cooks in private houses, I grew up thinking potato pancakes was soul food. It became soul food. But it was based on my great aunt who had cooked in a Jewish home and did her twist on the latke, and I was like, and I'm thinking, oh, the Jewish people got that from black people. And it was like, oh, no, it's the other way around. But food is one of the most wonderful mediums of cultural exchange. And, we have co-created, we have been the primary people in creating a uniquely American cuisine that is very African in many ways. The black eyed peas you're going to taste today that Chef has prepared, from Africa. Rice, Africa. Watermelon, Africa. Sorrel, the hibiscus, Africa. These are things that, and so nobody else knew what to do with these things. We ended up cooking them and creating the rice culture. Even the seafood. I could go on and on, but I'll tell y'all how to follow the podcast later.
I'm going to let Laquanda jump a little bit into this as well, because you're preparing many of these foods that Tonya was just talking about, that we're talking about. And I wonder if, so you've got this explosion of awareness surrounding black food or black diaspora foods. a lot more awareness about or interest in urban farming and urban agriculture. Is a city like Philly, with its government and also its residents and various institutions, is it equipped emotionally, infrastructurally for that type of landscape, for the type of food that we're preparing to also try to tackle those food insecurity challenges, to also grow urban farming? I mean, so we're talking a whole lot about urban farming, but is it accessible really in a city like Philly? What do you think?
Well, for me, I'll speak from my own experience.
Right.
I grew up in West Philly down the bottom, and the food around me was a bodega and a Chinese store. So I think if Philly is going to be put on the map for urban agriculture, I think that people need to want it. We're not just like out here just trying to tell people, here's some greens, grow it. Like, that's not going to work for me. It's not going to work for my team. I think that everyone needs to be on a path to like food sovereignty. And if Philly is going to be on a map like that, then we need resources to be able to do that, and also the knowledge.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Chris.
and I would just really piggyback too on what Sister said. I mean, I think that's the key, and that's what we're trying to do here. It's about sovereignty. Some of it's gonna be hard, y'all. If I always talk about the fact too, because there's a lot I realized when I moved here. I just thought I was moving to I knew I was moving to a major city, and everything. But when I moved here, I think there's a lot that, like I said, I took for granted and didn't think about. But by definition, many families, if they have moved here from the Deep South, and that's most black people who are here, then there is going to be some trauma. There is going to be some disconnection. There is going to be some pain. It is very rare that a person leaves home just because they want to. We created that story, and we have allowed the larger American story of, flying the coop, leaving the nest, and all that stuff. Traditionally, amongst our people, staying close to home as much as possible is what folks did. So when people leave, I always have to think about that. And so for me, I think we come into the work recognizing first that there is a wound there for a lot of people. And I'll tell you too, and Laquanda has seen, Laquanda's been farming and growing food and cooking food for probably most of her life at this point. Really add up all the years, and I would say the same for myself. I think but what we recognize is that the first thing you got to recognize that there is some trauma, that there is some healing there, and we see it all the time. Whenever we have a new class, we have a youth program of which those young ladies you saw are a part. But whenever we start a new class, one of the first things we have to do with kids who are brand new is to do sort of a triage situation with them, because they'll come in, and when they see that this agriculture, and you say particularly around African Americans, we got a real special, difficult relationship. I don't see it with Jamaicans. I don't see it with Black Hondurans. I don't see it with I don't see the same type of, and I can tell you that because we have children who come from all over the African diaspora to work with us. Philadelphia is the largest per capita, I think, center for Liberians in the country, outside of somewhere in Michigan, they say, right? So we have a lot of people right here in this neighborhood. And one thing I can say is that when they come in and they present from other parts of diaspora, it is very clear that our wound is still open, right? Because our kids will come out, they'll say, now they're born and raised in Philadelphia, they don't know nothing about Negro spirituals, some of them don't even know nothing even about church songs. But they'll come out here and they'll start humming what they think are Negro spirituals. They'll start joking about slavery. They'll start doing, and now we have watched that happen before. We've watched it with touring groups that are led by white people, and they're absolutely clueless. And so they let it pass, right? Because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to touch that. We'll move away from, well, we got to do that work. We have to recognize first the wound that there, what all went into the womb. I say very often is that the land is a scene of the crime for African Americans, right? And so, again, to get our healing, we have to return back to that scene of the crime. That's not going to be easy for everybody. But here at Sankofa Farm, we offer many ways and opportunities for people to get back whatever aspect of that experience they can hold on to. Everybody's not going to be a farmer. It's not a world full of farmers. Everybody's not going to be a chef.
Right.
And so We offer a community garden for residents of Southwest to come, and it's filled with elders and family members who want to grow their own food and do it in community. We will go out into your neighborhood, at your house, on your block, and build a bed for you in Southwest for people who want to reconnect that. So there are several ways to come back into that. We offer a market where the food that they can see where it's grown and see who's touching it and come and visit it whenever they want, can then be prepared and sold to them at market at prices that they can get at. So these are the ways that we are trying to reintroduce sovereignty.
You're talking about market forces there, and so we have this very, as black people, as a black community, we have this very complicated relationship with food and with farming and agriculture. So does that marketplace conversation, the economic opportunities that are now plentiful in a space like food, like the culinary arts, like farming, we're seeing it exploding. Another agricultural space that's creating billions of dollars of opportunities as controversial as cannabis, right? So is that the way, does that conversation, that marketplace conversation, is that the way we can get more? Because there are a lot of young people, a lot of young black people I talk to, and I've heard this conversation amongst a lot of different historically black colleges and universities, like especially those colleges that are focused on agribusiness and agricultural opportunities and markets and industries, like Delaware State University, for example, up the road. They have a big agribusiness degree, but they say it's really hard recruiting black students because when they think of farming, or agriculture, think of slavery. But is that the way to kind of start getting them more interested in that space, is to talk about it as a marketplace, that, hey, there's a lucrative career here in the food, agriculture, farming business?
I think for some folks that might be it. I will be very honest with you and say that is not the thrust that I come from. And there's a lot that goes into that. But I do think that that's a valuable and crucial piece of the discussion, particularly in a community where, a big part of that for us, how that shows up for us here in Southwest Philly, being situated right next to the largest public housing campus in the county, Bartram Village, right? That's a blessing for us. That's a blessing for us. Because our neighbors and them elders who come straight from the South, they come out here, they walk out here, and they reconnect immediately, and they bring the young people with them, right? So I think that for folks who are struggling right now in the economic and the here and now, that's going to be one. But I want to be really real, folks. This is not a country that values food in that way. The folks not going to like to hear me say that. But we don't value real food. Europe, you're not getting a bag of chips into the European. I want you to know that Kraft and Lay's make a different type of food grown with different produce for the European market and for some other countries' markets. You know why? Because them people not going to put up with it. They don't want your GMO experimented with food and that sort of thing. The average American will tell you, I really don't care and would rather not hear. That's been my experience, right? So again, I think we got to have a moment in which we really put everything on the table to talk about, because it's becoming life or death. At this point, I would say a good 80, quickly approaching 90% of our seed stock, right, of the seeds to grow all the food for America, are owned by someone else, China largely, right? And I'm not jumping on the Trump bandwagon or anything, but I'm going to tell you honestly, when somebody else is controlling your seeds, we don't never think about it. We live in a country that has the fame of throwing away much more food than we eat. Something else that does not happen in the same way in other countries. So I think before we even talk about the economic, I don't want to lead these young folks on. I don't tell them, come out here, I'm going to teach you how to make $1 million. Because in agriculture, in this country, that has yet to be the case. We're building it every day, though. We're building that every day. What we instead tell them is that we do employ our young people, because our young people can't afford to volunteer at this point. They get the same values and skills of volunteering, but our young people are supporting their mom and daddy and brothers and sisters, right? And so we are real about that. So we don't bring people on and talk about we're going to give you life experience. So we do pay them, and we're blessed to be able to do that. But I want to be really real about it. What it will take is you and you and you and you and you and me, right, to recognize the value of food. When we go in and we're taught to shop for the cheapest bag of carrots that we can find, well, we got to realize what that's doing to farming and what that means when we talk about we want agriculture to be this economic powerhouse for folks. It is economic powerhouse right now, and I'm going to tell you, it has not been that for black people, right? Even in this urban agriculture, this is why we move away from using that language. The urban agriculture movement, those sorts of things, well, they're making a lot of money and they're doing a lot of stuff.
And we got about about 5 more minutes to
You
go.
got, you know, you got to cut me
transition
off,
to
brother,
food
because I'll go
test.
on. You know I'll go on.
I don't want to cut you
This
off
my
either.
jam.
Right.
But it's real in the field, y'all, like
Yeah.
we say.
I
It really,
know.
really is.
In fact, I wish
It's
we had.
real in the
I wish we
field.
had more time too. Right.
There'll be
So-
a tour. We'll
Keep the
continue.
conversation going.
Oh yeah, I want to keep and well, that this is what I do want to ask, right? Like, because there is this big renaissance that we're going through as a nation. As you know, there's more global discourse, right, about food and about chefs. Like, you know, you have food networks, you have Hell's Kitchen, you got Master Chef. You don't see any black chefs. Yeah, we don't see any black chefs. What's that all about? I don't. Laquanda, Tonya, jump in on that one, Tonya.
The food media
and what do we
is
do
like-
about that to let people know that that black chefs do exist?
That's why I'm doing this
That
work.
black food
that's why
talent
me and a
exists.
bunch of
Right.
colleagues, that's why we do this work. Because, you know, I was blessed to be asked to be the first ever and the last and only food historian to be on The Chew, on ABC's The Chew. And it was a lot of uncompensated work, because that's how they do it, right? You know, you're on TV. And I'm like, thanks, but... But it was, you know, it was a blessing. And the point being that, you know, they called me up like a day before. Like, they called me up and they were like, hey, we want to do a Black History Month segment, you know. And, like, part of me was like, ugh. But then I was like, nope. I was like, this Black History Month? Because it was like the middle of the month. And they were like, yeah, can you come, you know? And I was like, Tuesday as in the day after tomorrow? And they were like, yeah, what are you going to make? And I was like, you just called me and asking me. And then I was like, what is the blackest thing I can do on The Chew for Black History Month? And I was like, Hoppin' John, right? AKA, you know, rice and peas and rice, you know, any kind of combination. I was like, both of those crops come from Africa, the black-eyed peas and the rice, and a lot of and the technique and the story and all this stuff. And they aired the show the same day that Black Panther came out. But anyway, I did that because the hashtag food media is so white and so clueless about the true history. I just want inclusive history, an inclusive narrative. You know, I was taught history, a lot of us were taught American history through battle and wars, and it's important, I guess, to know all of that, but that's not the only way to learn history. What were people eating? What were they growing? What was, you know, so food has now become a way to learn that history, and I think by reclaiming that knowledge, to your point, Chef, it's part of reclaiming the narrative and sharing that narrative in whatever ways we can. You know, we're blessed with WURD radio station, you know, Pennsylvania's only black-owned talk radio station.
Yes.
You know, based here in Philadelphia, that has, you know, partnered with the farm to make this happen, to get this conversation going. So we have to use the media that we do have and rise and add the conversation. You know, a blessing to be talking with Charles every Thursday around 6:25 p.m. on, what's it called? Reality Check. We're going to, you know, keep this culinary conversation going. I'd love to have you on, Brother Chris, farmer, yes, friend, yes.
Brother Chris on the other day,
right.
and Sister
Come back, you know,
Laquanda as
because
well.
there's so much. It's just so much. There's so many pieces to this. But yeah. Can I say something about the wine real quick? Or
Yeah,
before we
let's
close?
go. Yeah, real quick, wine, because and I wanted to get to that, but and maybe we might have. I'm told we might have while we're doing the cooking demonstration. After the cooking demonstration, we might have a little bit more conversation, and also the wine sampling is after the cooking demonstration as
No,
well.
it's been going on. The wine
It's just
sampling has been
ongoing
happening.
as well. But talk about we got about in this discussion right here. We got about another minute. Talk about wine, because Black people have actually saved the wine industry, especially Black women.
And that's relatively
That's an actual
recently.
fact.
I mean, Black
yeah.
and brown
when it was
people-
going through a recession.
This industry wouldn't exist without
Right,
the
exactly.
hands of Black
Yeah.
and brown people. Bordeaux, the famous Bordeaux in France, was along the transatlantic slave trade. It was one of the main ports
Right.
of that. So, you know, people, you know, a lot of times I'm made to feel like some interloper, like, oh, that's not part of your culture. It's like, hello, you know, it was the Nubians in Egypt that figured out a lot of this stuff that then goes into Europe, but also, you know, there were Black Africans in Europe that were part of these industries. Also here in America, the brown people, the Latino brothers and sisters out in California, we would have no American wine without that labor. But in terms of today, I wanted to bring some selections that were organic
eco-friendly, sustainable, no pesticides, no herbicides, a better quality, raise our awareness to that, and pair them with the food, that links to our lineage as the cooks, the chefs, the stewards, the wine stewards, in the development of fine dining, which is also something that wouldn't have happened without us. And so that was another skill, pairing stuff. So I wanted people to be able to experience that and to know that it's very much a part of, wine's made all over the world by people of every color, ethnicity, every hue. It is a human thing that existed before us. We became part of it. It's part of civilization. We are all connected to that, And so I just wanted to connect that dot as well.
We're actually going to start our cooking demonstration, right? Chef Laquanda Dobson is fixing some delicious, very appetizing foods over to my left. And I can't wait. She's getting started. And as we can still continue that conversation as well. We can continue that conversation with Tonya and also Chris Bolden Newsome. As far as, Chris, as Laquanda is getting ready and she's prepping, food is becoming a lot more, especially these days as we're talking more about it. The food is obviously the menu. Are these the foods? Are these like there's still a lot of young people, for example, which are like, especially when you're growing up in Philly, folks are so used to going to the corner stores, or they're so used to a certain type of food, and it's real hard to open up their minds. But are these some of the foods that are like the gateway foods that will get you into accepting or acknowledging a more sophisticated menu?
We certainly hope so. I mean, I can tell you the food is going to be delicious, but beyond that, Sister will talk a little bit more about it, is that those foods represent our story. You want to see the page of our story? It's on that plate in a real way, and the sister will go into it and talk about that. But I think that all these ways, and I just want to clarify the last thing I was saying too, just sort of in that same vein, that we're not telling people that this is not a viable lifestyle to do this work, but just like the food that's presented there, is that it has a deeper meaning than just the economic. Because see, I come from a people, and y'all come from a people too, who during the Great Depression didn't know they were poor. Didn't know they were poor because they had a truck garden out back, and they might have been low on coffee and sugar, but that didn't hurt nobody. I learned from my elder, Miss Pearl Trotter, who's from the town right up the street. Where you at, Miss Pearlie? She usually loud enough you can hear her, Miss Pearl. Okay. I was reminded by my elder from Bolivar County, up the street from us, that when we didn't have coffee, that they would roast okra seeds. That's your African. And then I said, well, wait a minute, they did that in Africa. Well, we knew how to do that, right?
Yes.
So again, I just want to say, I want to emphasize, Miss Pearlie can give you the recipe later, but I just want to emphasize that, and then I'll pass it on, is that what I'm offering is the economy will ebb and flow, right? But we got to survive. We got to take care of ourselves, and so that's what we want to put that knowledge back in people's hands, because you can't take that from folks.
And let's have Laquanda describe what she's about to prepare. Laquanda, you disclosed 2 of the dishes the other day when you were on Reality Check. I'm trying to remember those dishes, but tell us, there's 4 different dishes. Tell us what those dishes are and what they consist of.
Okay. Can I get started first?
Sure, go ahead. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to slow you down.
Peace, everyone. Peace, peace, peace. Who's in the room? Peace, 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 peace. Before I get started, I always like to sage everything that I'm cooking. So when you eat your food today, just know that I did this same process. And I did it with intention. I did it with love. Yeah, baby, get hot. Trying to light my sage. So I normally bless everything. Today, I will be demonstrating the okra dish that we made today. It is made with red. Excuse me, y'all. It is made with red, and red has tomatoes, carrots, and it's like a tomato dish that is cooked with like delicious, delicious vegetables along with palm oil. And we'll get more into that a little bit later. But I just want to start this cooking process. So we have already stuffed the okra already with the red. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some oil to this pan. Yes, ma'am.
Is it red palm oil?
No, this is vegetable oil. This is not red palm oil right here. I like that you asked the question. Who else got questions? Yes, ma'am. The reason why I cook, I just wanted to say this. My great aunt Valerie, she was my I'm recently learning where my family is from, and I think that's a form of like Sankofa. Well, it is a form, not a think. So I'm learning where my family has come from, and my mom, we have these like really good conversations about where my family came from. And she recently told me that my family came from Waco, Texas, and we had a farm with pigs and a whole lot of other vegetables. But my great aunt Valerie, she taught me how to cook. She would always kick me out of the kitchen sometimes, but like she taught me how to cook. She gave me that love to cook. My mom she had 5 children, so it wasn't no time to be in the kitchen. You had to get out. But my Aunt Valerie made space for me to be able to do that, and I do the same thing for my nieces and nephews. It's 5 of them. When they come to my house, they are learning how to cook because that's what's important to me. And when I came here, my mentor, Chris, he started making these dishes that my Aunt Valerie used to cook. And every time I would try one of his dishes, I would have to step away from him because I just started remembering all of these things that she used to cook. Just recently on Friday, he made me this bean soup. And my aunt would always make this bean soup. And Chris gave me this bean soup on Friday as we were like preparing for this event today. And I was like, wow, like my Aunt Valerie is like in me now because I did not know how to cook this dish. And I'm just so thankful for you, Chris.
It's the pinto bean.
Yeah. As I get this hot, you want to?
Let me throw this question to you, well, Laquanda, while you're getting that hot, and if you have a moment to answer it, and I can also ask Chris and Tonya about the seasoning. How do you? That's an art in and of itself, right? And first, how do you perfect the art of seasoning? 2, how do you select the right and the healthier seasonings? Because it's not just sprinkling salt and pepper and Old Bay. You can get more creative with like that. I'm sure that farm, right, is growing seasoning, but seasoning that's healthy, seasoning that has a natural taste to it, but it's not sodium filled. And I think that that's one thing that we have to be careful of, especially when we get into the public health aspects of food.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So in my family, we call it, people got the gift or you ain't got the gift to like season something properly. And, don't be afraid of salt, real salt. Okay? Real salt.
Don't be afraid of it.
Don't be afraid of it because there's
What
a
about
big
it
difference
has to be a
between
certain
commercial.
type of salt, right?
There's a big difference between industrial food system salt
Okay,
and real
okay.
salt that people have been using since the beginning of time.
Right,
that
right.
has nutrients and trace minerals and all that stuff. So, we just kind of have to, America at large, we have to re-educate ourselves if we care. If you care, you have to educate yourself and each other and do stuff like what we're doing now because there's a lot of trust, right? You just trust. You just go to the store and like, they're not poisoning me. This is food. This couldn't. Yeah, FDA says this is fine.
It's organic.
Right. Wow, that's a whole nother. Yeah.
We could talk a little bit about that, right?
Yeah. Well. But after a while, I'm like, no, I don't want yellow number 5 and red number whatever, and I don't want high fructose corn syrup, and I don't want all this other crap in the salt. I want what I want in the salt. I want the minerals, but I don't need this other. So you just have to. It takes a little more time and energy and research and work. But yeah, but seasoning is flavor. It's about flavor. I don't know any. I mean, the seasonings I use, I don't know any unhealthy seasonings. But I'm sure maybe they exist. But it's like it's herbs.
Right.
It's garlic. Right. Yeah.
Sure. It sounds like okay. So my young sister, y'all have something to add to that? All right, let me. Oh, okay. Thank you, Sabria.
Thank you.
You want to clarify what you mean by good salt, real salt?
What's good salt? What's real
I am
salt?
not a salt expert, but as an
Yeah.
obsessed foodie who shops, who tries to get the best stuff I can for my little bit of budget that I have, I know that, and I belong to a food cooperative where I live when I stay in Brooklyn, and it's like the buyers are choosing. There's actually a brand called Real Salt. I'm not, they don't pay me. I'm not endorsing real salt.
Yeah.
But there are other types of real salts. There's a whole bunch of different salt. There's pink salt from the Himalayas, you just said. There's
Sel de mer.
Yeah.
There's lots of different.
Yeah.
I do want to turn our attention
yes.
back to
Okay, good.
to the star of the show and to what's gonna get us going and maybe hold the
Okay.
discussion on salt. 'Cause I can talk about salt all day. I really
Salt,
can. I'm
right.
so glad the sister said what she said. But meanwhile, in the back cave.
Okay, so I have started grilling the okra, and I stuffed it with this delicious red that you all will try today. Let me put one up. So when you grill this, you want to give it a nice little char on here. Let me show y'all. Can y'all see that? Y'all see that little char? Is it there? All right, hold me to it. Okay.
Nice grilled
Now, I just want to talk about, this is 400 years that our ancestors have been here.
Come on.
Tell
And it's
it.
basically the year of the return. And this dish is a
2019.
celebration of the year of the return.
1619. She's right. Sister is right.
1619.
So we have these delicious grits, okay, representing the water that we traveled on. We have the boat, which is the okra. And we have it stuffed with the red, which represents us. Then we have the parsley, because I don't care where you're at. If you're eating some black food, it is parsley on top of it. So
Not
I'm adding
cilantro.
some African American stank on there.
That's true. We be decorating our food. Right.
And that concludes our cooking demonstration. Before I finish this up, I want to tell y'all more about the dishes that we have today. I'm going to come close because I'm a personal type person. Okay, we have mulatto rice. It is something like party rice, jollof rice. I learned how to make that rice through working with Our Mother's Kitchen. You can talk to Kalia over there. We have grilled okra, the dish that I just showed you all. We also have braised greens, okay? I learned how to saute greens. My green recipe came from learning how to, I love the canned glory greens. And I was like, it's too much stuff in here. Like, I gotta change it up. So my greens is inspired by the Chinese stores that I've been going to. So it's like sweet, savory, and bam, you'll love them. I have also heard about these greens that each time you take a bite, it tastes different. So look out for that. And we have the sorrel drink. I don't know if you all got to try that. And we have a black-eyed pea fritter station, okay? So I want y'all to go over there and try these fritters that are very delicious. Also, what did I want to say to you all? Oh, when you try this food, please don't gawk it down. Please take your time and enjoy the flavors. Yes, thank you all so much.
Thank you, Chef. Thank you.
So it's Laquanda Dobson. Laquanda Dobson, another hand for Laquanda Dobson, resident Sankofa Community Farm chef, and also a member of the Black Dirt Farm Collective. Also sitting beside me, Tonya Hopkins, food and wine historian. So Tonya, everyone will be able to join you right over there, right, for wine
I hope there's some
to
wine
go along
left.
with the food,
Yes.
and also Christopher Bolden Newsome, Sankofa Community Farm. Thanks so much for this conversation, and Sara.
Yeah. So Tanya's going to just, I guess you did your little wine conversation. So what's happening next is the food tasting. So Laquanda and her team are putting the food out. The Black Eyed Peas station is fired up. I already had one. You can see my plate. So what we want to do at this point is give them a minute to get the food out that you can sample. Chris is going to conduct some tours of the farm for those who would like a tour, and you can tell us what time that will be. I would say like around 6:45 or 6:50, and should they just meet you?
Yeah. So if people could just meet me right at the gate of the farm. We have 2 gates actually, and we should have. Oh no, maybe our staff will not be posted. Oh yes, okay, all right. And we have our sister in the back who will sort of orient you and lead you on in, and we'll start the tour. And when it starts, again, we'll either have drummers or we'll ring a bell or something so that we can move decently and in order and on time, because we're gonna walk through, and I really want everybody to have a chance to get any questions that they have out with the rest of the group, because somebody else might have that question too. So yeah, we'll say 6:45ish.
6:45ish. So you can grab a little something to eat, maybe do the farm tour. Talk with Tonya and Chris, and Laquanda's busy, so you can't talk to her. she's working. She's working hard. But just enjoy the beautiful surroundings. And I would be remiss if I did not thank our sponsors. Comcast, NBC Universal, and Pico were our sponsors for tonight. So it takes a village to do these events. And I want to really thank all the young people who came out to volunteer and to help us. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and thank you all to all of you for coming. You know, we didn't know we do everything for the first time. Like almost everything we do is like a first time thing. So this is really a wonderful representation of our community, that you all are interested, you're engaged, and you are about just expanding and engaging with the rest of us in these different topics. So thank you for all of you who show up all the time. We really appreciate it. Yes. So thank you all for coming. Continue to enjoy this beautiful space. I want to also thank Carolyn Winchell from the Bartram's Garden, who was like our point person. She was wonderful to work with. And again, it's just been a real pleasure and honor to create this space and to work with Bartram's Garden. And I hope you guys are enjoying it, and enjoy the food, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
And stay tuned for the tour.
Stay tuned for the tour.